Yeah. We'll just do introduce yourself.
Oh, okay.
Thanks.
It's silly, funny, but it's teaching us very fundamental how it's like I think a lot of people are overwhelmed by what they think they have to do to edit.
What is there after this? So we have 4 to 5, and then there's another speaker at 5 to 5:30. Is it, or is it?
Yeah, isn't Catherine talking again? Not at 5, but 5:30 or something.
That might make sense. Let me check. Oh, you're right. So we end at 5, and then 5:15 is the Catherine and Christoph thing. Okay.
Christoph in this room at 5:30?
No, at the big room. Yeah.
Oh, Christoph. Okay.
Yep.
I certainly don't see everybody just signed up on the Wikimania site.
It's 4 o'clock in the end of the day. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have seen people straggle in quite late for these sessions. It's okay.
Is you ending the pad now?
Yeah, I'm just putting in the link in the summary graph of this. It's just a discussion point. Should you do quick introductions or just go right into it? Yeah, it's true. Okay, whenever you're ready. You ready? Okay.
You ready?
Yep. All right. All right, folks. Why don't we get started since we have to get out of here by 5 to go see Catherine and Christoph Henner. So welcome to the session on Other-a-thon. It was Ryan's brilliant idea to give it a cheeky title. So.
Yeah, I thought of afterwards that it had the other is also a verb, and it might not. So it's not about the verb othering. There's not a workshop about that, just to be clear.
Oh, I wasn't blaming you. I thought it was a good title, actually. Okay, so we've had sessions similar to this over the years, and I think it's always useful to kind of take stock of how well are we doing events where they're either outreach or engaging different individuals as our tools, practices, as our community evolves, especially with things like Wikidata and other interesting ways to engage the public. So we thought we'd have a session here. It's kind of based on a Signpost article that came out in February of this year. So Amir Aaroni wrote this really nice piece that kind of pondered whether we were effectively doing these kind of outreach events or training events, and even whether we should be calling them editathons at all, which I think has always been kind of a running battle as to what we label these things. So we thought what we'd do today is at least set the table as this session, kind of rethinking some of the things that we kind of know about these kind of get-togethers, meetups, editathons, whatever you want to call them. Try to look at some of the strengths that we see in what we do with outreach events. What are some of the things that we kind of observe as real weaknesses? What are some of the solutions that we might propose in a kind of a brainstorming way? And then what are some of the calls to action? What can we actually tangibly do? And if it helps to, even outside this room moving forward, keep the conversation going. Okay, so Ryan, you want to add something?
Yeah, so one of the things, first of all, can you hear us, or should we use a microphone? It seems like it's a small enough room, right?
If you close the door.
Okay, yeah, close the door.
I think one of the things that we hope to get out of this session is some concrete-ish ideas for other outreach models, whether they have been tried already or not. And so could we get a volunteer to take notes on the Etherpad?
Someone want to be the scribe?
I would, but the connection isn't working.
Oh.
It is kind of flaky in here for some
You
reason.
could take notes.
So-
Well, we
True.
kind of need to see them on the screen too.
Yeah.
But if somebody could try, any and all of you are welcome
There's-
to type directly on it, but if we could have someone responsible
There's
for
a
it.
link to the Etherpad on the submission page as well as from
Right.
the notes page.
I've got it.
You got it?
Yeah.
Super. Great. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Good.
So you want to?
Yeah.
Okay. So I felt like to get started, it would be a good idea. Everybody in this room is familiar with the idea of an edit-a-thon. Is that about right? Okay. I don't see anybody shaking their head. How many people here have participated in an edit-a-thon?
Ooh, somebody have it.
Okay. All right. And so, because this is based on sort of not edit-a-thon, it makes sense to start on edit-a-thons briefly first. So, what are some of the things that an edit-a-thon does really well? Samantha.
Gets people in the room.
It gets people in the room. Yeah, it's very media friendly. It's appealing. Yeah, John.
Getting non-Wikimedians talking to experienced Wikimedians.
Hmm.
Okay, good. Connecting experience with novice. Good. You know, some hands right there. Yeah.
Getting new users.
Getting new users. Okay, good. Yeah, back there.
Making use of a lot of library resources. A lot of times the librarians, they're more into getting a bunch of resources for a bunch of people rather than just one person.
Okay, good. Yeah, so it's having an event is kind of a good rallying point to gather resources. That's good. Yes. Good.
It makes people feel like they're really contributing to society, that they're doing something good, and that engages them with the organization that has sponsored the edit-a-thon,
Great.
which is, so it's like two values.
Right. Okay.
Oh, I think it's good because it has a social aspect to it, you know, meeting Wikipedians face to face
Right.
and working together.
Good.
Any other reasons why we love edit-a-thons? I mean,
They're
they're
actually having a consensus here about non-effective software.
Right. So we definitely gonna turn
Yeah.
to the what doesn't work. But we're gonna start.
Basically, we don't have new users. We produce new
Wait,
articles.
but what does
There's
work?
no
Before we go to the doesn't work.
we're going to do that in about 2 minutes.
Okay, fine.
But before, yeah. So what do you see as outcomes or engagements at work? Does not work doing anything? Not work doing
There
it?
was definitely some results. I mean, in terms of medias and articles updated or uploaded on Wikipedia or Commons, whatever.
So sometimes work does get done.
Yeah.
Sometimes
some of the work gets done. But
Okay.
That's it.
That's it. No other benefits that you see? Okay, yes, that's good.
Not particular.
New partners.
New partners.
Yeah.
Good. Right. Sometimes you someone who volunteers to host an event that you've never had an engagement with before. Good.
Good community relationship, it just brings positive press.
Good. Yeah. And even if you have media coverage of it, that's great.
And often people from other institutions come to the edit-a-thon,
Mhm.
and it's a way to meet people in a wider circle.
Right.
Is there anybody here who became involved with Wikipedia through an edit-a-thon? All right, so what about the edit-a-thon was successful from your perspective as somebody who got involved?
I think for me, I mean, it was, I used Wikipedia and things like that, but, it was kind of that barrier to, getting into, hey, what do I actually do to edit things, and kind of having somebody to kind of mentor me along and kind of give me a little bit of support and, making me feel like I was doing the right thing.
Like an accessibility thing?
So if you had an issue or question, you didn't have to hunt stuff. You got a person you could talk to right away.
Right, I mean, it was kind of like that kind of quicker path into kind of getting started doing things.
Right. Yeah.
I went along to the first edit-a-thon because it was the theme was a subject area I was interested in. I wasn't really that bothered about learning to edit Wikipedia. It was because it was about a subject area that I was passionate about.
Good point. So it may not be Wikipedia's primary, it might be secondary, but you find a topic that people are passionate about. Good.
Is there anybody who has run an edit-a-thon here? Wow. So, somebody who has run one, why did you run an edit-a-thon rather than a different type of Wikipedia event?
Will you repeat?
I didn't know there was another type of Wikipedia.
That's exactly what I wanted to get from that question. Yeah, it's neatly packaged. For example, the art and feminism folks have done a fabulous job of making it an iterable event that's accessible for both the people that are attending and the people who are running it. And it's become a media-friendly event. People know what it is increasingly. So, yeah. So, I do want to be clear that we're about to get a little bit negative and about the edit-a-thon, but I don't want to give any impression that that we don't like edit-a-thons. Edit-a-thons are extremely valuable tools. The purpose of this session, I think, is just that it's increasingly the only tool that we use for outreach events. So now switching gears. We okay to switch gears, Andrew?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Switching gears, what are some of the things that edit-a-thons either just don't do so well, or that we want them to do well, but have not been able to get them to do well, if that makes sense? So you want to start back there?
Yeah.
Hi.
Well, basically, editathons are good for getting some work done, definitely. If you define a specific topic, you can do that. In our, for Wikimedia Italy's perspective, they are really bad at user retention. New users do register, but then they don't stay. And it was really once in a blue moon that it happened. The most successful editathon actually was held at the Uffizi Gallery at the beginning of this year. But mostly we were all seasoned Wikipedians, so that's why it worked. And we got a new partner, as Santiago was correctly saying. We also held all the other editathons during the year. Still, the Uffizi one was the best one because we were all old people. There was another internet definition for that, but I'll not say it. That starts with all. So that's it.
Yep, I mean, it'd be interesting for you folks to read the signpost article that we referred to and then the discussion. So the discussion is kind of what spawned this session. And one of the pieces of feedback or comments that's related to what you said is that Mike Peel, I think it was, said that editathons, the genesis of editathons was for veterans to get together with veterans. We're not sure exactly how it turned into an outreach event so officially, and maybe we should rethink the whole approach, is that we shouldn't just say, editathons, great for veterans, also good for novices. No, that's not really a good logic there. All right. Good. Any other comments? Yes?
Sometimes hard to recruit people to come, especially if it's a technical topic, which is something we run to instead of editathons a lot.
Mm-hmm. Right, in that sense, maybe is it tough to keep the attention of veterans and novices at the same event because of that?
No, it's hard to get people to come in the first place because for technical topics, the number of people who will come to it are a lot narrower, and a lot of people will be intimidated if it's not exactly their topic. Like for example, we had a edit-a-thon with the American Chemical Society where the topic was notable chemists in chemistry as broad as possible. We got a good turnout. The next time we decided, well, the meetings, their national meetings theme was computers and chemistry, so we'll have an edit-a-thon that's computers and chemistry. Like almost nobody came because it was too narrow.
Okay.
And even if they weren't computational chemists, they still could have come, but they saw that and they were intimidated.
That's a good point.
Keep it as broad as possible. And that's a problem of it.
Right. Good. So general appeal. Yes.
It has a visceral kind of experience. And so it's entertaining, it's emotional, and if you can marry that with someone's interest or passion, whatever it might be, those two can be a strong vehicle for turnout. But if you also have a track record with these events, if you build it with the community, whatever that is, where you're giving a lot of help, that's making it easy for people with no experience to come in and set up a page of some kind, that makes a big difference. And our subject files, there's a lot of back-end work for preparing this visit. So it's not just people coming in, being casual, here's some names. They're coming to our museum, they're coming to our library. We've got all sorts of everything prepared, so it's very easy for them. They're welcomed. It's a guest that you're planning to have over, as opposed to just drop it. Then people feel like they can leave with some educational materials, I can do this at home, and so on. Otherwise, it can be very, why am I here? I don't know. I'm always raising their hand for help.
Right.
But how do you define success? Because we've done 2, and we're planning to do a 3rd.
Right.
And we're not really sure what that means either. We know that the first one we did was Women in Art. And we had, 1,500 people expressed interest on coming on Facebook.
Yeah.
And 25 came.
Something like that.
That's a good ratio.
That's a really good term.
The second one, was on African American artists in our, and this is we're an art museum, so we were focusing on our collection only. The second one we doubled. We had 40 participants. Most people stayed the whole day, except for one person who came just to check out to see how they could do it back at her home school. And we couldn't even keep track of the edits as they were going up. So that seemed more successful. But for all the work it takes to put it together, is that a good payoff? I don't really know if we know the answer to that. So
were you satisfied at the end?
I was exhausted.
But I think that also there's the other side to that although it's easy to imply in what you're saying, is if you don't do a lot of work beforehand, it doesn't necessarily, sometimes you can still get good results out of it, but when you have people who show up, it's less likely. People show up, they don't have direction, they're not sure what article to work on because everything that they've already thought of, aside from themselves maybe, which is always an issue, has an article already. And so, and they might not know where the sources are, what the options are, what you have available. So, yeah, back there.
I think Dr. Benedict will point out one problem or potential bias, because often I assume that in some places those things really do work, but when we take a city that has 10 million inhabitants or more, then probably yes, but I'm coming from a country that has 1.3 million people, and if I, let's say, try to do something like this in a city that has 100,000 people in it, it's virtually impossible to actually do it successfully. So just
my introduction to editathons was I had thought that it was to recruit new editors, and I think if you're looking at that as success, recruiting new editors and retaining them, but I think it's all the same in the beginning, it's almost zero success, if I'm not exaggerating. What I've seen at the meetings here so far is people want to redefine what success is, and I think that's wonderful. But can we continue doing this? But there's also the question in my mind is, does anything recruit new editors, or are editors born and not made?
Well, that's a more philosophical discussion than we have here.
No, is anything we going to do?
I think there's empirical evidence that you can make editors, but I think it's a lot harder than we probably think it is to treat them and convert them. Right? Yes?
Well, I feel like the problem at the root of that, and at the root of helping people who are very difficult to help, which I have done at editathons, and it's like, here's a pamphlet and they don't read it, but is that people come to editathons and they don't have a vision of what they want from the editathon. Because they don't understand what the event is or what they can get from it. So some of them show up without an idea of what they want to edit on, with no idea of how to edit Wikipedia, and they just sit down in front of a computer and they say, okay, now help me. And that's, for me, what makes editathons so hard is I have 3 or 4 people who I have to sink so much time into helping that I can't slightly help the other people who are doing all the work.
We've got a great template for how to do an event, and we'd be happy to share it with anyone. We have materials prepared ahead of time. We have a training session with the time listed. We have support people. Every time we get something that goes up online, we make a big deal about it. We ring a Tibetan bell. At the end of the day, everybody gets a cookie with a work of art on it. I mean, we make it, and all of these things were suggested to us by other people who tried them, mostly from libraries, and it worked. It's a great event for the participants. If anybody wants that template, just let us know and we'll send it to them. And we have, and Meg made this incredible packet that they can take home with them with all that resource material, but then that isn't enough alone. You still need that training for new people. So we have a trainer who does a 20-minute session.
Right. I think that's a great point. I think
Minneapolis.
we just want to make sure it's in the notes somehow. It's like librarians are masters of in real life engagement and refining that person-to-person interaction, and we should definitely draw on that experience more. So that's a great idea.
And so what we want to do in the library now is we want to get away, if we can, from that one-off session and to integrate it more into the fabric of what the library does as part of its ongoing mission of showing people how to edit in Wikipedia and having them write about art online, coming to our library, getting involved, again, in that visceral sort of way with the art, the collection, with writing, and that wonderful sense of freedom, that self-affirming sense of self that comes about when you're writing an article. And and you post it, and you see someone liked it, and they're adding, you're part of this very peaceful, this wonderful community of people. It's a good experience. And in terms of the benefit that we got, especially from our last edit-a-thon, it was something you can't really quantify. It was a feeling in the room of peace, joy. Everybody, it was a feel-good thing right across the board. It was like a party with no alcohol. That's how it went.
If I can just quickly, just something that's implied in a couple of these comments, in talking about the training materials, the packet, the spending time with people, editing Wikipedia is hard. I mean, it takes time. It's not, and it doesn't always have the success that you want it to have. Sometimes people learn to edit, make a copy edit their sandbox or their user page, and it's successful for them in having exposure for Wikipedia. But again, looking at how do you define success, it requires a lot of time, precision, and energy and technique to do that, because it's just editing's not the only way to.
I guess the bigger question is does it have to be, right? Because that's one model. One model is it's a heavy lift. There's a lot of stuff you have to do, but does it have to be? No. It's like we got all these references. Can you just add a reference? And that's why one lib, one ref was quite successful, right? Let's hear from some other folks.
So I'm at an academic library, so we have a very small target audience, and even when we partner with the city, we struggled to get people engaged for the edit-a-thon. A lot of people wandered in, not ready to even learn how to edit, they were just curious. So we realized that before we even try an edit-a-thon, we needed to have some type of event where we just open people up to Wikipedia, or have less labor-intensive events. We played with the idea of doing photography sessions, but we realized that could be twice as labor-intensive and expensive if people aren't ready to use the technology that they already have available to them. So we think the edit, on my ending, we did a series of 4 edit-a-thons, and we had a consistent number of people, and we shifted from more experienced veterans at the first session to more repeat newbies at the end. But the edit-a-thon should have been the end. It should have been the product of all the build-up that we were doing, and we didn't do that build-up. We didn't even know what to do to build up.
So I come from a different perspective because I'm from a university student group. So we put on several edit-a-thons with working together with the university library at Ohio State. In addition to several times we've worked with other student groups. So for example, we had a Women in Computing edit-a-thon, and we got together with our chapter of ACMW at Ohio State, and they brought in their members who were female computer science people who are already interested in the topic, and we had a list of articles that needed to be worked on. We had, I guess, clear goals for the people, and with many of our other editathons that we've done them. We've had a clear list of things to do. Especially the library has been real helpful in several times they've gone and pulled some books for us relating to articles that we've identified need help. So they'll go, Ohio State has a huge library system, so they'll pull books, some articles from databases behind a paywall. They'll pull a lot of this stuff, so that way when people come in for the edit-a-thon, we can tell them, okay, well, here's a list. Here's this book that corresponds with this article, and obviously we help them along a little bit, but it's a lot easier, and we had a great amount of success doing that because it's a targeted thing. And granted, that is a lot. That's a lot of work. It takes a lot of people to make happen. I don't know how accessible that is to everybody here, but if it sounds like a lot of people here are library staff, so that may be something to look at. That's just my experience.
Yeah, so you just have some more smaller tasks, not necessarily article writing, but other smaller tasks that you do.
Yeah, or even if it isn't article writing, it's letting people know that this is the article that needs to be written, and here's the resources to do it. So it's not just, welcome to the Montreal Edit-a-thon, take a seat, and I don't know what you're gonna do.
Right.
It's, take a seat. We've got a pile of books over there that correspond to articles that need work. Here's how you would make this article better. Do it.
Right. Good. Yeah, get a comment there.
No, basically just the same thing. I mean, usually a narrow scope of the editathon helps a lot. Then I already said what didn't. Still, probably it's my way of measuring success that makes me think that probably it's not the best outreach event.
Right.
Also.
Sorry, go ahead. No, I was just wondering, how many other folks have different models for success rather than conversion and retention? Because I think that we've understood for years now that it's a very low yield, and that's probably not the thing that we should hone in on. But a lot of people still look at the 1% retention rate and say that's really not very pleasing to the eye. What can we look at for other goals there and then here?
So I mean, for us, we look at the articles and the physical stuff that we've done, because especially like when we're working with the other student groups, it's more important for me and at least our group, if we get 25 people who are passionate about this topic, and we get each one of them to make 3 edits in the span of 2 hours, that's a lot of work that was put on.
Right.
And that is more edits that we've done as a group in that one edit-a-thon than, say we had less people show up to the edit-a-thon, but we had one guy who became a semi-active member. Now that one guy, maybe he's doing, say 100 edits a year.
Right.
If you get all these people in, that's pretty successful in my opinion.
Right. Here and then Casey. Yeah.
I helped run one Live, One Ref event this year, and the way that the things that made it successful, I think, were limiting the time it took to get them editing as much as possible. So getting them editing as soon as possible, even if they only knew how to do like a basic sentence.
Right.
And using citation hunts, which finds you a location on Wikipedia that needs a citation, and then they just find that one citation and add it.
Right.
And that that gave them a sense of efficacy that I think really helped them work faster.
Right. That's great. So how many people here have heard of One Live, One Ref or know about it? So most of you probably do, but it's just, it's this kind of hashtag campaign to get librarians to just add one reference to Wikipedia. And if you need to find out how to do that, there's a tool called Citation Hunt that basically says, here's an unsourced statement. Maybe you can help us fill in that reference. So that's been fairly successful, providing kind of this, I hate to say this, like a hamster feeder of tasks. Rather than saying, here's the whole universe you can explore, it's like, no, here's a hamster feeder, a little pellet's gonna drop down. You gotta process that pellet.
But then people have 6 edits at the end of an hour.
Yeah.
Right.
instead of one.
Right.
And that's huge.
Right, right.
I want to roll out just coming back to this in a second, just want to roll out the last part of the session officially, even though like we've already started talking about one-to-one ref, photography assignments. I mean, the last question is, if not an edit-a-thon, what else can we do for outreach? And so just as a guy, I'm just going to pull up the notes up on the screen to go by some of the feedback we've had so far. But sorry, go ahead, Casey.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Casey. I work at the foundation on the grants team, so I've seen a lot of people's like reports on projects, and we talk about what does success look like, and that was your question. So if it's not new editors, because it's very hard to get editor attention. So some examples I've heard of from Art Plus Feminism. He said, you know, people come to Art Plus Feminism and maybe they say it's not successful because people don't continue to edit after that edit-a-thon, but what we see is people are coming back every year for it. And so that to them was an indicator of success, and I think it absolutely is. So if you're having like regular event series, it's how often are people coming? Or are they bringing a friend? That could be something else.
Right.
And then I think we were talking about micro contributions. I mean, the hamster feeder piece. If people aren't editing in the main space, but they're adding notes to the page about a subject they know about, like this is also sort of an indicator of improvement. But we're also really curious to know, like, what are other indicators of success for outreach?
Right, and one for me is like awareness of even just literacy of Wikipedia. That I think was that someone from WikiEdge told me like that when you see the number 1 and number 2, number 3, that doesn't mean that's the first most important sentence and the second most important sentence and the third most important sentence. Those are endnotes, right, or references. And even just literacy of how to read a Wikipedia page might be interesting as an outcome. So let's go here, then back there, and then up here. So yeah.
So I got a foundation grant for edit-a-thons. We did 4 local history ones about 2.5, 3 years ago. We struggled because we had no metrics, no benchmark to set. We kind of went with what the foundation really recommended, which was retention and how many new editors came back. And we found that really didn't end up working for us, but we didn't really know, we didn't get a reaction on our feedback when we wrote our review. It was just sort of, here's the review, okay. There was no like, well, okay, yeah, you didn't bring in as many new editors or retain as many editors as you thought you would, but we added 72,000 bytes of data for edit-a-thons, and we felt like none of us had done that much work. I mean, that's granted, that's 72,000 letters, but then there was 18,000 removed. So we saw a different, if you're thinking of terms of metrics that you need, like for a big city, going from 25 people to 50 people is a huge jump to double your numbers, even if the interest seems far higher. But when you're dealing with these smaller, very focused ones, bytes might be the metric.
Go ahead.
Basically, well, also we are on the Italian Wikipedia. We are really keen on despiting editathons because we focus more on quality. It doesn't seem like that from my point of view. But still, no, they're really keen on quality and not on new biographies. This is this is possibly the one point where I totally disagree with my community. New articles are actually a good metrics, in my opinion, in an editathon. Or added, and the number of bytes added to an existing article is possibly it's a good metric. The number of sources added to a particular article is a good metric. But still, quantity sometimes it's easy to measure. Quality should be in a way also assessed by the community. But still, it really depends on how good you're seeing by the community, which is not our case.
Right. Good. Yes.
Bearing in mind that a lot of the training that I do is introducing people into what actually Wikipedia is, that big barrier of how to read an article and understand what the platform is. So one of the key ways that I measure success is in qualitative ways. how do people feel at the end of the session? Do they feel that they've understood how? You know, have they enjoyed the couple of hours or 3 hours that we spent together learning this new material together?
Right.
So I don't know how the foundation recommends measuring qualitative information like that. But that's one of the key ways that I assess whether it's been successful.
So you have a pre and post survey that you do for these
Don't do a
events?
pre, do a post, do a feed evaluation at the end.
We do a real simple one with the grid, and what's your comfort level and your knowledge level in the beginning, and at the end with 2 dots. And we moved everybody from the bottom left-hand quadrant to the top right-hand. It was, you know, a few people didn't move very much, but most people with the most knowledge moved the least. The people with no knowledge moved the greatest.
Right.
But they felt good about it.
Right.
That's really easy to do.
Right. That's good. Leanne?
I mean, I think the question at the end of the day is, are you getting what you wanted to get out of it for the time that you put into it, right? So like, I mean, I think of it from the context of if you've got, you know, 3 or 4 experienced Wikipedians there who are helping train those newbies for 3 or 4 hours, and you put in 10 hours planning and recruiting people for the edit-a-thon, is the content you're getting out in those 3 hours from the newbies the same, or is it more than you would have gotten and the 3 experienced Wikipedians that were there would have gotten if you just sat in a room together and done it, you know, in addition to the 10 hours ahead of time, right? And so, you know, if your theory of change is we're doing this edit-a-thon to build awareness of Wikipedia, then that's a totally different, you know, then you can have an outcome. But if your goal is content, if your goal is retention, then, you know, maybe it's, depending on how you set it up, it may or may not be as effective. And so I think one of the things is that we struggle with sort of globally as a movement is we have this term edit-a-thon, and we have 6 or 7 different goals that we say an edit-a-thon is going to do. An edit-a-thon is going to fix the gender gap. An edit-a-thon is going to fix our new editor retention problem. Edit-a-thons are going to add all these content. They're going to fill specific content gaps. They're going to engage new partners. They're going to introduce people to how, you know, to understanding how to read Wikipedia. They're going to do, you know, 6 other things, and we have one generic term that we use to define an event that looks very different in very different contexts. And so I think one of the challenges that we have is it's hard to apply measures of success and metrics to it when we have so many different goals that different people are doing. And so I think, you know, one of the things that I hope we as a movement can do is start separating that out and stop using edit-a-thon as a term to mean 7 different events with 7 different goals.
Right. I think a lot of people agree with you. We're not really sure how to do that, though, right? Like, do we need a language committee to like the French, like in France have, like to say we're going to call this, this, and this, this.
Yeah, get ISO to put out a standard.
What I hear is a lot of people are dissatisfied with retention, and more people are looking for getting to know what Wikipedia is. So I'm going to, pretty much off the top of my head, say we need some ideas here. I'm going to suggest the surf-a-thon. Okay, everybody gets in there, and what do people like to do on Wikipedia? They like to surf. Right? So you go from one link to the next link to the next link to the next link, and then maybe at the end you have people explain how many different links they went through, which was the best article, which was the worst article.
Doing wiki wormhole in Amino.
Wiki wormhole, yeah. So you could definitely, that would raise awareness. Okay, and that's about all it would do. Well, you'd have a lot of fun. You could have a lot of fun. Yeah.
That's a good idea. I mean, so you don't necessarily have to produce a lot of content, but it could be awareness and games and fun. Good job.
I like that idea, and it goes with the idea that was previously said that like the edit-a-thon should be the last thing. You need to have a build up to it. One of the interesting things about my experience is I'm a Wikipedian in residence at NIOSH, which is a government laboratory. So I have kind of a captive audience.
Right.
And that over a long amount of time, they can continually, say, hey, look at this Wikipedia article. Hey, do this thing. And I've been trying, and one of the things that I've been trying to figure out is, what's the sequence of things that you want to do. That you don't necessarily want to go and sit down and say, okay, now we're going to go and have an edit-a-thon. the thing that I'm learning is doing the content gap analysis is a very important thing.
Right.
Even if they never edit themselves, having them say, you know, this is missing in this article, these are the sources, and then you might actually go physically write it, and they go back to it, look at it and say, yeah, that's good, but you know, the sentence is not quite right, you know, this is, you know, not quite right, you know, make those. That's a good model, at least for when you have subject matter experts. But I do think that having that build up, having that sequence, maybe having a much bigger focus on content gap analysis, at least initially, that leads up to editing later, might be a better model for, you know, multiple of these metrics.
Has anyone ever done an event which is based around content gap analysis versus creation? Deanna?
Yeah, we've done a few with academic associations and with professors, and those have been really successful at generating lists of content.
Yeah, Casey.
We funded a rapid grant trying something out in Nigeria where awareness of Wikipedia is really low, and they were doing wiki clubs, which you know is popular on college campuses in some places. But when I was working with the grantee, I told him, you know, I want your goal not to be new editors at the end of this. Let's find some other smaller things, and we said, let's have students make a game out of searching for content gaps on like what they care about in Igbo or whatever the languages are that matter. And so we said the success measure for that session was, you know, every student puts 3 red links up, and that's the task. So we're going to see how that sort of works. But we also were building a curriculum around just getting really excited about Wikipedia to the point where you would share it with someone. And how many people did you share it with? That was another sort of piece. But so far it seems like that's been popular with students.
Just for people who that's not a, it could be self-evident, it might be a jargon term, content gap. Content gap could be any area of Wikipedia on any, either a subject or within a subject, a subtopic. You know, art and feminism addresses a very specific topic area, which is articles about women in the arts and their work. So content gap analysis, it's a bummer that Monica is not here. She did a class that she had her students do all the, what, you're shaking your head.
No, so she did the content gap analysis workshop and brought in experts on topics to create that list, and then she worked with a different class, and they were supposed to take the list and actually make improvements off of it. We did this sort of combination of 1-2 thing, and the students just were not interested by any of the content gaps that the experts had identified, and so only 2 of the, I actually happened to be in the class that day, and I sat through their presentations, and only 2 of them even picked things off that content gap list. So I think one of the important things of that is to actually have the experienced Wikipedians who want to take that subject, that content gap list, and do it. I think one of the other, there's the Society for Neurobiology or Neuroscience or something like that here, used the Hypothesis open source annotation, and they had a project where they encouraged all their members to go and annotate the English Wikipedia articles, and with suggestions of what was wrong with the articles and things like that, and it went and dumped it on the talk page, and I went and tracked that, and there were 0 edits by any experienced community members after the subject matter experts had gone in there and made the comments. And so, and it died off because here's all these subject matter experts who give you all this feedback about the quality of the article, and then nothing ever happens. And so I think when we think of these content gap projects, I think they're good, but they need to have a second step built into it of a group of editors who are going to say, yes, I'm going to take that advice or that feedback from that experts and actually do something about it.
Such as a Wikipedia resident.
Yes, such as a Wikipedian in residence like John.
Or a Wikipedia scholar or something.
Yes, yeah.
The step 2 thing for the Wiki Club in Nigeria was, so the goal was for students to each make 1 red link for something they cared about that was missing, and then have that list go to the active Wikimedians in the Nigerian community and ask them to say, hey, can you put in a couple hours and make a stub for each one so that we can show these people, like, hey, if you want it, people will make it. You just have to tell us what it is. So we're going to see how that goes. I'm interested to see if maybe flipping that direction can change things.
We have about 15 minutes left just to do a time check.
What is a wiki club? I've never heard of it.
A wiki club. Well, in this case, it's just a club on a university campus. I think you.
I would be a wiki club. So ours is a student group, so we are not necessarily. It's more on the university level among people, I guess, as opposed to foundation. I don't know if that's
Is there a
really.
form to it? Like, what do you do? Like, do you have social gatherings?
That's the biggest part. So we get together, we have a weekly meeting.
You serve pizza?
We have pizza, we have drinks, we get together, we bring in editors on campus, we post the meeting so anybody else is welcome to join us from the community. I don't think we've ever had anybody join, but we have students at Ohio State who edit Wikipedia. There's between 10 and 15 people who show up about every week.
And what do you do at the meetings?
We'll talk together, we'll have workshops, so if something's new in the community, if something we need help with, maybe something that Wikipedia or the foundation or overall is trying to move towards, make it aware. We sit, we edit together, and a lot of it is just socializing.
Yeah, and you have your whole user, it's officially a user group, and they have activities and they have things, and maybe you can show her some of your event pages and all that stuff.
If you're more interested, I can show you more information after. Anyone else too.
So let's go around and try to get some more rapid fire ideas if we have some.
I'm especially curious if there are ideas that either you've executed or thought about but never quite did that don't even involve Wikipedia editing. Maybe it's photos, maybe it's Wikidata, maybe it's Wiki Voyage, or these content gaps analysis are great ideas. So just throwing out there. Sorry, I cut you off.
There's a bunch of catalogers in our library, and they might enjoy adding categories to.
Oh yeah, categorithon.
Yes, back there and then here.
We actually had, it started from her idea. She's too shy to talk. That's true, right? So we basically had a mapathon on archaeological area in Rome, and it worked quite well.
Nice.
So we had like an OpenStreetMap meeting, and the next day we had an editathon for uploading the data on OpenStreetMap, and then enrich also the Wikipedia article. That went very well, and possibly it's something that could scale also.
Great.
We've been trying to get something started where we assign our honors students to work with faculty members to do sort of the content assessment, and then use that experience to help the students do their own assessment, and then present it in sort of a research poster session to the students to sort of build upon and share with other students.
Right.
We haven't gotten it off the ground yet.
Does everyone here know about ORS? O-R-E-S? How many people here know about that? ORS. Oh, so you should definitely know about this. So it's a tool that uses machine learning to try to come up with a grade of a Wikipedia article by knowing what a typical good article looks like in Wikipedia. So it's built into a lot of tools, but you can also run it just as a tool. You could say, here's an article in Wikipedia, insert it into the tool, and say, tell me whether it's B class, C class, star, featured article. And this is really quite useful sometimes, if even at the 1 hour event, you could have people try to improve it from C class to B class, and they can just punch it into the tool and get that. But then there's also the outreach dashboard. So how many people use outreach dashboard?
If you're tracking it, then ORS is integrated into the dashboard already.
Right. So you should definitely learn about the outreach dashboard. You can insert the articles you're working on, the people working on it, and it'll track all this automatically.
What's it called?
Outreach dashboard, and then ORS, which is O-R-E-S. ORS.
Or if you're working with students in the Wikipedia dashboard too.
Right.
In the
Right.
We use that at our editathons, so we tell people to sign up, and we can actually track, and I have the data, I can pull it up for the editathons, and we can go back and see how many articles were created, how many people we had working, how many bytes of data, because it'll display all that. And like with the ORs, we can go and see, well, what was it before, what was it after? Where are the articles standing now? How does this all, we have those metrics, so it does maybe for some of the people who are talking about impact, I mean, that does give you a more concrete impact, because if you don't know who edited what and nobody came back, then, yeah, that would sort of seem like.
That's great. Yeah. Back there and then up here.
Okay. As a group, we assume that Wikimedia Spain assumes that people who attend the editathon maybe cannot finish the work there. So to measure this impact, we like to measure measuring the impact of the editathon after some days. After some days, not just that day of the editathon. So maybe 1 month, and we are inviting these people continuing editing at home. So, for example, the dashboard is useful, but not in that case. Right. Because it measures all edits during 1 month. It makes no sense.
Right.
We measure only the edits in about the list we proposed for the editathon. Right. But so how we measure is different in some cases. Yeah.
Right. Right. Good point.
I was thinking in that same line that it's, we deal with public audiences, so having an event is great because it brings everyone together to focus. But especially for new people, you aren't going to get that much done that day. So following up with people, giving them mentors, or offering that option for people who come would sustain that relationship. Right. Because there was, the last one we did was on African American artists in our collection, and that a relative of someone who didn't have an article was, or someone had just started a stuff, wasn't able to come, so I sent her all of the material. It took 3 months, but 3 months later, she sent me an email to check the article, and she'd uploaded tons of material with really good citations. So it's, you know, good content isn't instant. Right. So maybe we need to build that long-term into every event, not just, and our expectations.
Good point. Yes. Yes.
I've heard of some groups that do radio shows where they'll just read part of an interesting article that's sort of topically relevant to things that are happening in the news. And someone else just told me about like a podcast app that makes it really easy to make short podcasts. And I think, you know, for getting people interested in a subject or building awareness, doing outreach, that can be.
Isn't there something like, when I have a news search alert for Wikipedia, and every week there's something like Fact or Fiction Wikipedia game that some blog plays.
Right.
It might be fun to do with a group of students or town locals.
Right. Right.
I'd love to see like a viral campaign, like get young people to try and do something to
Right.
people.
Has anyone done anything with Wikidata and editathons? Some interesting, like, quick bites on what might have been successful or what you might have learned. Richard?
We played around with using the Wikipedia game.
Good.
What about using it for you know, like describing different items? We also played with trying to you know, pre-generate draft articles and for works of art in this case.
Right.
I think for other things, to prepare some articles, maybe make some of those steps of the edit-a-thon a little bit easier.
So if you're new to Wikidata, you might want to look at two things. One's the Wikidata game, which is, you know, just not editing straight, you just hit yes, no to match things. And then there's also another one called mix and match, which is correlating external databases to Wikidata, which is, you know, kind of a fun environment if you have kind of people competing against each other. Yes?
Same thing for the editathons, but mostly they were the Wikidata things where we used a lot, the Wikidata game and the distributed game and mix and match, all the tools basically. Right. Librarians loved it with all their hearts. Still user retention problem. But I don't want to repeat myself.
No, you're right. You're right. But we found that too in DC is that for like a lot of librarians, like they don't really write articles, but once you start getting the metadata and catalogs and identifiers, they're like over the moon.
Yeah.
That stuff. So you never know. Yes.
Look, we like to keep things organized, and you just gotta tap into that.
Yeah, well, Wikidate is all about that, yes, good.
We have organized sometimes Wikitates and an editathon together, or not together, but first the Wikitates or photo hunting around a city or a zone, and then after that, editathon, people uploading the pictures and using the pictures or improving the articles, also writing. So people interested in photography can also join us.
Has anyone had any luck in doing public, like out and about walk-arounds? Like Wiki Shoot Me is a tool that will show you, yeah, it's called Wiki Shoot Me, and it'll show you, based on where you are, what pictures are needed in Wiki places.
Yeah, it's popular. We did that before we did editathons. That was the first event New York ever did.
Right, good.
Philippines does that.
Yeah, we called it
I heard from someone today that they had success doing like a Ask a Wikipedian booth at a library. They would do it once a week. And they just like had a table set up, and they said that it was pretty interesting, the questions that people would ask. And that was a way like people were coming back and they were learning about Wikipedia that way, but it was just sort of an easy thing.
I bet you that person at that booth gets asked, do you work with Julian Assange once a day?
Well, it reminded me, like, I follow New York Public Library on Instagram. They have like old cards that librarians have written questions that they got in 1942, and I think these are amazing. But it was Gary from Germany who had mentioned the Ask a Wikipedian library.
Interesting idea.
Then
Any
instead
other?
of reference, I'll just change reference to Ask a Wikipedia. Yeah.
Right.
Subject librarians are really jealous.
Any other interesting ideas, things you might want to try, things to recommend other people to try? We're doing more Wikidata in DC. We got like 20 Smithsonian staff for the last one that we're doing, and we just played Wikidata games. They were very enthusiastic. Yeah. Well, so when you go to Glam people, that Wikidata is just like perfect match.
If our collection's getting out there.
Yeah. Right. Okay, good. Any closing thoughts, Ryan?
I don't think so. So again, the link for this document is on the session page and on the conference all notes page. I would encourage us to look at this, and I would really love to know if you put into practice any of these ideas that we've talked about, or these alternatives to editathons. It would be great to start like coming up with a central place on Wikipedia or on Meta to talk about these, that keep track of the different models, because I think we haven't really gotten to the point in this conversation or elsewhere where we have those neatly packaged models like an editathon, where you can hand it to somebody and say, do this. Wiki loves monument maybe, Wiki takes your city maybe, like that's about it.
Yeah.
So anyway, if anybody else is interested in working on that, we talked about this a couple of years ago, and we didn't do it yet, but yeah.
That's true. There's a library users group now, so that's new from the past year. So seeing how librarians do editathons. Rob Fernandez, I think he's one of the guys who helped create that. Just to make sure people know people here. So WikiEdu is here, so they do a lot of support for colleges and classwork. Casey is here. She knows a lot about measurement because she won't give if you don't measure what you're doing, right?
Well, afterwards. No, I'm not a measurement. I want to help people find out what makes sense to measure. Foundation offers, those are grants for about $2,000. That's the max. We usually review those and fund them within 2 weeks to a month, getting the application. And it's a space to try out new ideas. So if you want to go to the grants